Hello! Today we are going to be talking about Romeo and Juliet film adaptations. Specifically, we are going to be discussing two of the most popular film adaptations, those of Franco Zeffirelli and Baz Luhrmann. Over the years, Romeo and Juliet has had many interpretations, with many directors making certain casting, style, and content choices that hugely affected the way the works were received, and they have even affected the perception of Romeo and Juliet in today's population. Let's start with Zeffirelli's film, Romeo and Juliet, 1968. Zeffirelli's first stroke of genius was to have the lead roles be youths, true to Shakespeare's actual description, or at least truer than other adaptations. Romeo and Juliet were played by Leonard Whiting and Olivia Hussey, with Whiting being 17 and Olivia only 15. This is a large step up from George Cukor's 1936 film that had two middle-aged actors attempting to play the love-struck teenagers. This film was criticized for being too arty and too altered. The age change in Zeffirelli's film allowed it to connect to a younger generation, and the mounting opposition to the Vietnam War made this film appealing to a counterculture of youth that could relate to characters of Romeo and Juliet in many ways, namely, in their estrangement from their parents and their opposition to inherited militarism. Now, on to Baz Luhrmann. By the time Luhrmann's film came out, Romeo and Juliet had seen innumerable film adaptations, and he needed to do something to make it pop, something to make it applicable to generations that were born hundreds of years after Shakespeare's own time. This film came out in 1996, and so Luhrmann modernized the play, setting it in Verona Beach and making the families battling mobsters. It can be said that Luhrmann's adaptation was artsy and stylized almost to the extreme, but he did take some tips from Zeffirelli, keeping the language of Shakespeare while cutting portions of the text that were made unnecessary on film. Luhrmann also employed younger actors for his leads. Leonardo DiCaprio was 21 and Clara Danes was 16. Now, there were critics on both sides for both of these films, and much of the fuss dealt with how the director used and altered the source text. Perhaps the most notable interpretation in Zeffirelli's film is that of the duel scene, where the fight between Tybalt and Mercutio is made to look like an incident of out-of-control bravado. The two are baiting each other, teasing each other, but even in the midst of the fight, they don't seem to have any intention of harming or killing each other. Tybalt is even portrayed as feeling horrified and guilty about his accidental wounding of Mercutio, generating sympathy for him that was previously absent in other adaptations. On the part of Luhrmann, his most controversial move was to omit the end scene where the families reconcile. But this is in keeping with the darker undertones of the movie and highlights the theme that Luhrmann seemed to favor, that of death as a result of the collision of love and violence. There's more to be said on these films, so the most important thing to say is that you should watch them. Romeo and Juliet is only relevant insofar as it is read and watched, and by studying this work of art we can recognize the messages that it leaves in our own lives, messages that live and evolve with humanity.
That's all, folks.